The standard RI2 Determining Claims is truly an important standard no matter what you plan to do in the future, because at its heart it's about figuring out what a text or a person is trying to tell you, what's most important about what it is they have to say, and that is a life skill that you'll need no matter where you end up. When we look at the target, we'll see that it builds quite clearly from the one level. One level says I can determine multiple claims. And that multiple claims is going to be a key difference from your previous years of study. In the past, you have been asked to find a single claim or a single important idea in a text. Now you're going to be asked to find multiple. For our purposes, that will be at least 2, but many of the texts that you are presented with will include more than 2. At the 2 level, we're building, and we are not only determining the multiple claims, but we're also going to be doing several other skills. We're going to be able to talk about how those claims relate, and we're going to give 1 to 2 details showing how those claims appear in the text. Beyond that, for the level 3 or your proficiency level, we're still talking about how they relate. The key difference here from the 2 to the 3 is that you can give at least 3 supporting details for each claim that's present in the text. And at the 4 level, not only can you explain how those claims relate and give 3 supporting details or more, but those details are the key details, or the most important details. First question we need to ask is, how do I find the claim, given that that is the basis of this standard? Here are a couple of tips for you, and they will not all apply all the time, but you can work through the list to help find the claims in each piece that you encounter. My first tip for you is to look at both the beginning and the end of the text. You, in your own writing, are often instructed to include your claim or your thesis in your introduction paragraph and in your conclusion paragraph. There's a reason for that. That is a recognized standard of persuasive writing. So you can look through the whole text and see in your introduction paragraph of what you're reading, is there a repeated idea? That could very well be one of the claims. Also take note of the main ideas of each paragraph. In older texts especially, each paragraph tended to have a separate claim. So if you can make notes off to the side, especially with the difficult text that we're going to be working with, what do you think the main idea is of each paragraph? That's going to get you a good start on finding your claims. Look too for differences in paragraphs. Do they support one another, or are they perhaps refuting one another? There could be a counterclaim present, just as you have in your own writing. Once you have decided on what you think to be the claim, do look back at the rest of the text, or at least at the rest of the paragraph for which you're working with, and ask, does the majority of this paragraph or the majority of this text support your chosen claim? If you can't say yes to that question, then it is probably not a claim and may perhaps instead be a detail. When you're looking to see is it a detail or is it a claim, here are some more tips for you. Claims are typically opinions. Okay? They don't stand well alone. They're the author giving their thoughts on the matter. The details are typically going to be more fact-based, but don't consider fact to just be research. There are other things that we can consider to be fact, especially in the case of persuasive writing. We do, of course, have logos, which you may remember from 9th grade. This is logic or reason, and this would be what you traditionally consider to be fact. Okay? So that's logos. But there's also ethos and pathos. And ethos and pathos may not necessarily appear to be fact right off the bat. You're going to have to sift through a little bit. Ethos is an appeal to authority. So that could be an expert opinion, as in a quote from another leader. In particular, in older texts, this could also be God, quite often, if you see that referred to. It could also be an ethical appeal, rights, what is right versus what is wrong. And we can consider this an ethos appeal in relation, in particular, to religion and to God. Typically, we consider our rights coming from God. Okay? And then finally, we have pathos, which is emotion, an appeal to human feelings. So any sentence that seems to be creating or discussing emotion for the reader, or even a fact, perhaps, something that actually did happen, but that is really startling to the reader, could also be a pathos appeal. And that is an important point. There is some crossover. Some logos facts can create pathos as well, and so you might identify it as both. Details in and of themselves are meant to prove claims. So when you're identifying what you believe to be details versus what you believe to be claims, make sure that the details are supporting those claims. The big change this year is talking about multiple claims. So once you have found two or more claims, you'll need to consider how they relate to one another, and you'll need to be able to explain this to get anything above a 1. The big thing is that multiple claims tend to help each other, and there are two key ways that will happen. 1, it could be a problem and a solution, and 2, it could be a cause and effect. The other idea here, too, is that multiple claims can connect to more readers. So when you see multiple claims, think, well, does one claim connect to, let's say, women? And does the second claim connect more to, let's say, men? Or does one claim connect to a certain religious group versus another connecting to a different religious group? Think about different groups of people and how they might respond to the different claims present, and how that might help the author's purpose. To earn a 4, you'll need to identify which details are most important. And this isn't necessarily a one-and-done approach. There are multiple reasons that you could give for something being most important. General rules of thumb, though, key details are going to be very specific. Vague details may not be very convincing to people, and so you want to avoid those when you're thinking about what's most important. Key details might also connect to a wide audience. People should be able to understand them. If you can't understand it, then it's not an important detail. We'll take a look at an example piece here. This is from Mark Twain on corn-pone opinions, and this is actually a couple of excerpts from throughout the entire text that have been pieced together to help show a couple of different ideas. Now, my first read through here, I'm going to be looking for logos, ethos, and pathos appeals. I find it helpful to look for the details first and then build on the claims from there. I am persuaded that a coldly thought out and independent verdict upon a fashion in clothes or manners or literature or politics or religion or any other matter is a most rare thing, if it has indeed ever existed. Now, I'm not going to label this as a detail just yet. The key words here that I notice are I am persuaded. This, to me, suggests that this is Twain's opinion in and of itself, which could mean that it's a claim, but I want to come back to it. Moving on. Mohammedans are Mohammedans because they are born and reared among that sect, not because they have thought it out and can furnish sound reasons for being Mohammedans. We know why Catholics are Catholics, why Presbyterians are Presbyterians, why Baptists are Baptists, why Mormons are Mormons, why thieves are thieves, why monarchists are monarchists, why Republicans are Republicans, and Democrats, Democrats. So I'm going to pause here again. That was a rather lengthy list. We've got many different groups of people mentioned here, and it looks to me like Twain is presenting this as a fact. Perhaps he's talked with people and maybe even asked them, why are you what you are? Why are you a Catholic? Why are you a Republican? And the answer may have been, well, because that's how I grew up. So I'm going to label this whole section here a logos fact, or in the intent anyway that it's being presented as a logos fact, even if it's not true for all people, which I think we could all say is probably also a true statement. Moving on. Men think they think upon great political questions, and they do, but they think with their party, not independently. They read its literature, but not that of the other side. They arrive at convictions, but they are drawn from a partial view of the matter in hand, and are of no particular value. This to me also reads like a logos fact, like this is something that Twain has observed people doing, that they're only reading perhaps the magazines and the articles that relate to what they already believe. Actually, this is something I've often observed in the people around me as well. I think that's just a human tendency. So I'm going to label this as a logos fact. And moving on, we all do no end of feeling, and we mistake it for thinking. And out of it, we get an aggregation which we consider a boon. Its name is public opinion. It is held in reverence. It settles everything. Some think it the voice of God. Well, anytime we see reference to God, we might wonder, well, is this going to be an ethical appeal, or is this something that people use to justify what they believe? This is God's opinion, perhaps. So I will label that there as well. And we also do see here feelings actually mentioned directly, no end of feeling, and we mistake it for thinking. In other words, we have emotion and we believe that it's related to thought, so we would include that as a pathos appeal. So we've got a little bit of a mix of everything here. We've found our details. Now it's time to think about our claims. What is the big picture here? We've got a sentence or a logos fact that talks about people believing what they believe simply because they were born to it. That's our first one here. We have a logos fact about people only reading and saying what the party that they were born to believes. We've got pathos, dealing with, people have feelings and that's what they believe. And then we have this little nod to people believing that the voice of God is their public opinion, what they already believe, and ethos, appeal. And to me, when I look back at that first sentence again, when I wondered might be a claim, it talks about it is rare to have an independent verdict, implying that people believe what other people believe. I do think that is, in fact, the claim, that it is rare to have an independent verdict. So I'm going to draw a line up here. And in a written analysis, I would write that out in my own words. And that would be, again, the claim. It is a rare thing to have an independent verdict upon any matter in life. And then we can go on to talk about the details because we believe what we are born to believe, because we only read and talk about what we are born to believe, because we rely on our feelings rather than independent thought, and because we believe that the opinions of those around us are very important, perhaps even like the voice of God. So I've identified a single claim in here, and I'm just working with a single paragraph, so that's going to be okay at this point. From here, I'd want to look at the rest of the text, and I'd want to see what other claims were present to consider how they relate, and that would help bump me further up into the levels of this particular target. We do need to think too, though, on what details are most important. And when I'm looking for specific details that relate to a wide variety of people, one stands out to me in particular here, and that is the very first in the series of lists. Mohammedans are Mohammedans because they are born and reared among that sect, not because they have thought it out and can furnish sound reasons for being Mohammedans. This is very specific as to why Mohammedans are Mohammedans, and he goes on to give the rest of those examples, the Catholics, Presbyterians, Republicans, etc., but it's only in that first one that he really explains why this is a significant detail. So I'd say that that is certainly a key one, not necessarily because it's talking about Mohammedans, but because it's very specific about why they believe what they believe. That to me stands out as very important. And then also any reference to God, especially in this time period, would be very important. So I would say that's a key detail as well as an ethos appeal. We believe what we believe because we think it's God telling us what we should believe. That too would be very important historically in America.